Well, good morning, everybody, and happy holidays to you all, and welcome to the beautiful Barnard Elementary School right here in Ward 4. Let's thank the principal and staff for their hospitality today. And I have the opportunity to make a very, very special presentation with all of you, and we're going to highlight how neighbors are often our first and best help, and why it's important for all of us to know how to help their neighbors. Today, we are celebrating the heroic efforts that occurred right here at Barnard on Election Day. And Mr. Gordon, who is no stranger to Barnard because he worked here up until his retirement in 1998, is still loved and well regarded by the Barnard community. And as many of you know, on the morning of November 6th, Mr. Gordon collapsed as he was getting ready to go vote. And fortunately, he was surrounded by good people who were ready to spring into action. And those three women are here with us today. Carmela Gonzalez, Jenny Reed, and Allie Boback. Give them a big round of applause. We also have Janie Wood. Where's Janie? Thank you, Janae Wood, who works for us in DC government at our Office of Unified Communications, also known as the 911 call taker. And Janae, provided step-by-step instructions on how to provide CPR and where to find the AED here at Barnard and how to use it. So let's give them all a big round of applause. Together, their efforts saved Mr. Gordon's life. And I also want to thank everyone who was involved that day, including our first responders from Fire and EMS. And I want to tell Mr. Gordon how happy we are to be celebrating you here today. Everyone at FEMS and OUC have worked together diligently to ensure we have all the pieces in place to make life-saving days and celebrations like this possible. Let me acknowledge Dr. Robert Holman, who is the Medical Director for Fire and EMS. Let's give Dr. Holman a big round of applause. I also want to recognize Karima Holmes, who is the Director of the Office of Unified Communications, right here in the front row. I want to thank Principal Reed once again and all the staff here. We were catching up and reminiscing on how wonderful this four-star school is in the heart of Ward 4. So thank you. When I became mayor, we set out a big goal, and that was to train all DC residents. Well, that wasn't the goal, but let's just say everybody should get trained. To train DC residents on how to administer hands-on hearts CPR. And today, we have trained more than 50,000 people in hands-only CPR. We have also registered nearly 5,000 people through our Pulse Point app, which helps people spring into action when a cardiac emergency happens nearby. These are people who are trained in CPR who volunteer to be notified when their help might be needed. So once again, to Ms. Gonzalez, Ms. Reed, Ms. Boback, to Janae and everybody at OUC who provides that life-saving information every single day at our Office of Unified Communications, I want to say thank you. And some of you may know that Jenny is not only a neighbor, but she works as my director of budget and performance. And I've known for a long time that we can trust her with $14.5 billion in budgeting. And now we know she's ready to spring into action to help a neighbor as well. So now I'd like to welcome Dr. Holman, our medical director at Fire and EMS, to recognize how important it is that we all know CPR, that if you work in a building like one of our buildings, a school, a recreation center, a government building, that you know where the AED is, so that you too can provide assistance when needed. Dr. Holman.
Thank you, Mayor Bowser. It is with your leadership and guidance that we work to see that cases such as this one become the norm rather than an exception. From hands-on heart training, arming more and more everyday citizens with the life-saving CPR skills, to the introduction of the PulsePoint app that everyone here and at home should have downloaded on your smartphone, if they just know the basics of providing simple, hands-only chest compressions, they will be alerted by the app whenever there's a cardiac arrest within a quarter mile to begin the life-saving measures in those precious minutes before our members arrive on the scene. To Council Member Kenyon McDuffie's leadership and the support of his colleagues on Council in arming every DC public and charter schools with AEDs, it all came together and worked, as Mr. Charles Gordon can attest. Chief Gregory Dean always emphasizes the connected community approach to the life-saving chain of survival in such cases, cases in which a patient's survival can depend on how quickly someone is able to jump in and lend a life-saving hand with chest compressions. Mayor Bowser provided the funding for additional call takers, and FEMS partnered with OUC, providing the call takers with pre-arrival instructional training, which armed OUC's Janae Wood with all the tools she needed to play such a pivotal part in this life-saving case, giving CPR instructions by phone from several miles away. In cases such as Mr. Gordon's, whose cardiac arrest was witnessed by a bystander, the national survival rate in fiscal year 2018 was 27%. In Washington, D.C., this rate was 43%. Every year since 2014, we have seen a steady increase in bystander-provided CPR since the introduction of hands-on hearts. And over the same period, since Mayor Bowser took office, our overall cardiac arrest survival rates have improved, even eclipsing the national rates in the last 2 years. It's all working, as Mr. Gordon can witness. Our cardiac arrest coins are presented to our members and to any bystanders who work together to return a patient's pulse prior to the transfer of care to a hospital and when that same patient is discharged in good health. For their exceptional life-saving pre-hospital care, now we would like to ask Mayor Bowser and Mr. Gordon to join me right here to provide these cardiac arrest save coins. Right over here. Okay. Mr. Gordon. Oh, yes, okay. Okay. So, let me give them to you, Mayor. Okay. Our first recipient is life-saving bystander Carmela Gonzalez.
All right, Carmela.
And a life-saving bystander, Jenny Reed. Life-saving bystander, Allie Boback. and Miss Janae Wood, our life-saving OUC call taker. Great. Okay. And now our DC Fire and EMS members. Firstly, DC Fire and EMS Captain Brian Gray. EMS Captain Philip Lammert. Firefighter Paramedic Brandon Fitch. Firefighter EMT Jamal Mills. Firefighter Paramedic Christopher Boyette. And Firefighter EMT Michael Ramirez. And Firefighter EMT Christopher Lancaster. Firefighter EMT Derek Yates is unable to attend, but he will be receiving a cardiac arrest save coin as well. Mr. Gordon, I'd like to introduce you to the podium here. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everybody. But I'm not a stranger at Barnard. I never will be a stranger at Barnard. I worked at Barnard during Christmas break, detail, and then I came back and worked again and with Dr. Reed. Dr. Reed was here, and most of all the staff. When I came back the second time to work, the staff said, "You back?" I said, "Yes, I'm back." I said, "Yes, I'm back," and all the kids, a lot of the kids said, one of the parents saw her son bending down, tying his shoe up. So she asked me. She said, "Mr. Gordon," she said, "Why is he tying his shoe up?" I said, "But he know. I always get him 3 resolutions. Number 1, your shoes must be tied. Number 2, you run up them steps, I'll be on the other side before you get there. And that means that you got to go all the way back where you started from. And Miss Reed, Dr. Reed is a very nice person, and I'm glad to see you as the principal of Barnard.
All right, me too.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Gordon. Let's give Mr. Gordon another big round of applause. And we're going to close our program before I take questions with remarks from a friend of health and safety and emergencies and a friend to us in the city, Linda Mathis, who is the CEO of the American Red Cross for the National Capital Region. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Bowser. Thank you so much for your leadership that brought us all together today. On behalf of your American Red Cross and the National Capital Region, it truly is an honor to be here and to be a part of this celebration of you, Mr. Gordon, and the fact that you're right here with us today. a celebration of these beautiful bystanders and Janae, who put their courage, their competence, and their compassion in gear and saved Mr. Gordon's life, and a celebration of our fantastic fire and emergency services team. Thank you for all of this. It's much has been said already about the significance of this occasion. I would just add that for the American Red Cross, it just doesn't get any better than this. It's a really big deal to save or sustain another human being's life. The highest honor the American Red Cross presents to anyone is the honor of saving another human being's life. That's what the mission of the Red Cross is all about, helping to sustain and save others' lives. So today, we have a special certificate to present to our citizens here on my right. This is called the Certificate of Extraordinary Personal Action, and it's presented to individuals who step up in an emergency situation and help save or sustain a life. These individuals exemplify the mission of the Red Cross, which is to prevent and alleviate human suffering in the face of emergencies. People who do this are to be commended for their willingness to help others in distress. And so I'd like for Paul Carden, our Regional Disaster Officer, to join me in presenting these certificates. And before we do that, I just want to say I invite all of you, to give the gift of love and life this holiday season. Make a commitment to get this training. If you don't have it already, Mayor Bowser has already shared, and so has Dr. Holman, how many thousands of people in our community have learned how to do this. But if you haven't yet, or you want a refresher, be sure to take time and give that as a gift to your loved ones this holiday season. Make that commitment to get training. Thank you very much. Now join us in giving these certificates to these beautiful citizens. Carmela? Again, this is Certificate of Recognition for Extraordinary Personal Action for Saving a Human Life.
Thank you so much. Well, thank you all once again for being here and to helping us celebrate. And I wouldn't be doing my job with all these firefighters standing here if I didn't remind everybody of winter safety, right? Water your Christmas trees, please. Also, be mindful of heat sources around your house, and be mindful of your little ones around all of the Christmas ornaments and things that they don't typically have around the house, so that we can all have a safe and happy holiday season and New Year. Okay, so with that, we'll take some questions. Let me ask Dr. Holman and Director Holmes to join me at the podium. Are there any questions?
Bowser?
Yes.
Can I ask, do you know CPR?
I do. I've had hands on hearts training. I could probably have a refresher on infant CPR training, to be honest with you, and so I'm going to work on that.
Tell us, just kind of from a personal standpoint, how it makes you feel now having that kind of training, knowing that you have that as you go through your day?
Well, it makes me feel very grateful that we have trained people who are going to be on the way, but I don't feel completely powerless. And I don't think I'm much different than the average Washingtonian. So I want to be able to help. And we have been emphasizing hands-on CPR, which should be distinguished from what we have seen on TV so often of mouth-to-mouth resuscitation and the like. What we're talking about is a very simple training, and Director Holman will tell us a little bit more about where we can find it, how we can go to public events, how we can go to our firehouse, how we can learn this very simple hands-on hearts training. But we're also reminded in incidents like this that we can have an AED in the building and people don't know where it is. And so that's why it's also helpful that our 911 call takers can be able to direct people, at least in our buildings, to where the AED is in the building. And it's very important. We started out at a very modest goal of having 5,000 people trained in a year, and now we're over 50,000 people trained. And so that's helpful too. And I was just thinking, as I was sitting there, people are having a lot of family gatherings. This is a good time to share this information with your entire family, because what must be emphasized is that our responders are going to get there quickly, but there's always typically a bystander there first, right? Your neighbor, coworker, that can be there first and render assistance. So let me just have Director Holman talk a little bit more about where people can find training opportunities.
So we have hands-on heart training at many public events, not usually in the winter time, but in the spring, summer, and fall. So any of those big events we can. I would contact your local firehouse if you're interested in receiving this training. In addition, I would emphasize the Pulse Point app for anyone who knows hands-only CPR. It's a free app. It's easy to load onto your phone. You have to just change the notifications to make sure you're being notified in your settings. And then you will be called, and I have been called myself, to the scene of someone who's suspected of having a cardiac arrest. In addition, the AEDs in government buildings and in businesses are mostly registered such that the OUC call taker can see where that location is, and when she's giving CPR instructions, she can tell a second bystander to go ahead and fetch the AED to bring that back.
Yes.
Could I ask about, it used to be when CPR was taught, the compressions and the breath. Now the emphasis is on the compressions. Could you explain why that is and why?
Sure. So it turns out that the science has changed a bit. So we know that the most important thing is compression only. And so with that change in science, it's become much easier to push this out in the public space. Because, as you know, people are afraid of doing mouth-to-mouth. We don't require that as part of this hands only. Yeah, absolutely. Cerebral blood flow and cardiac blood flow are extremely important.
Okay. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you. Okay.